Hello. So this week we learned about everything that has to do with memory, how we perceive information, how we process it, and how we store it. We learned how the brain is so complex. As far as scientists know, we have unlimited long-term memory storage. We also covered attention and how we can focus on one thing at a time, and we have to shift our attention from one thing to another. I watched a video from the Khan Academy that tested my memory and attention. So they flashed two types of symbols on the screen very quickly, but it was one type of symbol at a time, but I had to keep count of each. So I had to go back and forth and count the number of stars and the number of X's. It was impossible for me. I wonder if anybody is able to complete the exercise without failing. But this taught me about selective attention, how we only attend to one activity and ignore other stimuli. So this brings me to the information processing model, which consists of a series of stages that represent the process of the flow of information that we decide to pay attention to. So the first stage is sensory memory. This is the first registry of our senses, of the senses and that we perceive. The two most studied ones are sight and sound. So we have iconic memory, which is what you see, and echoic memory, which is what you hear. Even though I learned that iconic memory, which is visual, only lasts 0.5 seconds, and echoic memory lasts 3.4 seconds, I always seem to remember things better if I look at them. Like, for example, at work, I deal with a lot of codes and passwords, and I help others reset their codes and passwords. So when I need to do this, I have people write down their code or password, because if they tell me, it's really hard for me to remember, especially if it's something complex with numbers, letters, and a special character. So the second stage of this model is working memory. There are two categories to process different types of information in working memory. So things like pictures and maps are processed in the visual spatial sketchpad, and text is processed in the phonological loop, which is verbal information. And these two can hold about 7 pieces, plus or minus 2 pieces of information at a time. So for the phonological loop, the text could either be verbal or it can be written somewhere. This can be a combination of both the iconic and the echoic components. Therefore, when you need to use both the visual spatial sketchpad and the phonological loop, the central executive directs these two components to coordinate, which then causes them to create the episodic buffer, which is a connector to long-term memory. Now, long-term memory is the final stage in the information processing model. And again, there are two components in the long-term memory. So we have explicit and implicit. Explicit are like facts and events, like birthdays or information about a test. Implicit are things that are harder to articulate. The example that was given in the video was riding a bicycle. So if you learned at some point how to ride a bicycle, you'll most likely be able to get on a bike and just do it, even if you don't do it every day. Um, I think I have a really good implicit procedural memory. Uh, there are things I don't do for a long time, but if I do them again, I can just pick them up. I think at work, I have there's things that I'll go months without doing, but then like for example, like building a computer, I don't do that every day. Yet, um, when I do pick up hardware and start putting together a computer, I just remember how to do it. But I don't know if I'd be able to explain how to do it to someone. So that's pretty much what the information processing model consists of.